In this video, I'm gonna break down which movements you need to be doing to build up your muscle and strength. Now, each of these movement patterns, each of these styles of movement have different exercises involved. However, before we go into exactly which exercises and explaining the form, I'm gonna explain to you that these are the best exercises that you need to do if you want to be better at sports like basketball, rugby, American football, soccer, any sport that's physically competitive. You are going to need to master all of these movements. Now, how much weight you use will depend on a lot of different factors, but before we get into that, we need to master these 5 movements. A lot of people go into the gym and immediately are working on biceps and triceps, and they're not realizing the basic movements are the most important movements that we can ever do. Now, you might be thinking core is doing sit-ups or doing crunches. It's not. It's not doing Russian twists either. Properly doing your core is knowing the correct exercises that athletes in the top models are doing. And I'm going to tell you exactly what those are so you can look better than ever. Number 1, squat. Different types of squats. We have the goblet squat, which is when you have the weight out in front of you and you're squatting downwards, thrusting upwards. You also have the back squat. So, important key elements with the squat. First of all, in terms of flexibility, you need to have enough hip flexibility to be able to get deep into the squat without putting too much pressure on your knees. If you don't have enough hip flexibility, you will damage your knees and you won't be able to get all of the beneficial results from the squat. The second thing you need is enough ankle mobility and ankle flexibility so that when your knee is pressing forward, your heel is not coming off the ground. The third thing you need to think about is that the weight when you're squatting should be not in the back of the foot, not in the front of the foot, but evenly distributed just about in the middle of the foot. The next thing you need to be thinking about is as your foot is on the ground, there are 3 main points of contact that your foot should be having. There's the right part of the foot, which is below your big toe. There's the left part of your foot, which is below your little toe, and there's your heel. So there should be 6 points of contact on the ground, 3 on my left foot and 3 on my right foot. The last thing you should be thinking about when you're squatting is bracing your core and having a very strong and stable core that's going to allow you to keep your spine in a neutral and straight position. If you can have the correct mobility of your ankles and hips, the correct balance in the middle of your foot, as well as the correct stability, you will perform an excellent squat and you're going to build a lot of muscle in the process. The next thing that we can learn about is the deadlift. Now, the deadlift can cause you to have a tremendous amount of pain if you're doing it the wrong way, or it can be an exercise in which you've been able to jump higher, get incredibly strong, and improve your entire life, even reduce back pain if you do this correct way. So the difference between the squat and the deadlift is that with the deadlift, instead of bringing your hips back and then having your hips come down, you're actually having your hips go just completely back and your knees are only slightly bent. Now, depending on the variation of the deadlift you're doing, it might be closer to a squat, such as in the sumo deadlift, or it could be way more of the extreme of the deadlift, of bring your hips farther back, such as the Romanian deadlift. There's also single leg versions, such as the single leg Romanian deadlift, which is great for building up stability and balance in your legs. No matter what you're doing, you are going to be strengthening your posterior chain in both of these movement patterns, but even more so in the deadlift. What is the posterior chain? The posterior chain are the muscles in the back of your legs as opposed to the front of your legs. If you can get those muscles in the back of your legs much stronger, it'll help protect your knee from injury as well as make you a more attractive man. You're gonna be walking into the club and all the girls are gonna be like, damn, that guy has a nice booty. I guarantee it. The more posterior strength training that you do, the better that you are gonna look as a guy. So how can we deadlift properly? Well, there's a few keys that you should think about. When you grab the bar, if you're doing the traditional deadlift, you wanna turn your elbows outwards, engaging your lats, as well as not only be pulling the bar up, but driving your feet down into the floor. Now this is very difficult to do. You also should notice that your spine, which is generally gonna be in this position while you're in the bottom part of the deadlift, should not be curving downwards at the bottom part of your deadlift. So you need to make sure that you're bracing your core, breathing out, keeping that core tight, and keeping your spine in a neutral, straight position to not hurt or put into danger your lower back. If you can do the deadlift correctly by properly bracing your core, keeping your spine neutral, and driving your feet into the ground, you will truly build up incredible lower body strength. The next exercises are the pressing exercises. Now the reason I'm not going into just saying bench press is because there's so many important pushing exercises, as well as for some individuals that can't properly perform the bench press, a dumbbell press might be the better option. Now there's 4 main types of presses. You have your bench press, you have your dumbbell press. You also have different varieties of push-ups. You can do your push-ups with your feet up on a wall and doing it, really high up. You can also do flat push-ups. You can do wide push-ups. You can do diamond push-ups. And then there's also other pressing exercises like holding dumbbells and pushing them up, or holding a barbell and pushing it up. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways to work your chest or upper shoulders. You want to have a variety, and you want to make sure you're pushing not only upwards, but forwards. Those are the 2 main important ways that you want to be pressing. So how can we maximize our pressing motion? Well, the biggest mistake that most people make in the gym when they're pressing is that their shoulder comes up too much and they're pressing and their shoulder's in a vulnerable position. What you want to do is, on the day that you are pressing, is really engage that scapular muscle in the back through certain activation exercises to make sure that when you are pushing, that shoulder is coming directly from the inside of your socket. Now I'm going to give you numerous different activation exercises that are going to make sure that no matter what you are doing when you're pushing, you are doing the exact right thing. Generally, through those pressing exercises, you just want to make sure that your shoulder is in that safe position and that you don't feel any shoulder pain. Now, if you're feeling shoulder pain when you're doing the bench press and your arms are at this position, you might prefer to do a dumbbell press, which lowers your elbows at maybe more of a 45-degree angle as opposed to this 90-degree angle. That's a lot easier on your shoulders, especially a lot of people feel this impingement pain right up on this muscle. The next exercises are your pulling exercises. Now your pulling exercises are the opposite of the pushing ones, and pulling is when you're out here and you're pulling in towards your chest. Now there's different varieties. You can do a wide pull, you could do a thin pull, you could do a one-arm pull, or you could do something like a pull-up where you're pulling from up high. And of course you can do wide pull-ups, you can do thin pull-ups, you can do pull-ups where your hands are real close together, you could do commando pull-ups where you're pulling from side to side, and of course there's the one-arm row where you're holding the dumbbell and you're going over and doing a row. The most important thing throughout all of these pulling exercises is actually very similar to when you're doing the pushing exercises, which is to engage that scapula. You see, the reason the scapula is so important is because the shoulder is the most mobile joint in our entire body. And it's very vulnerable. Not only is it very useful through pushing, pulling, going up, going down, pressing, it's easy for it to become injured or damaged because it's held together by different tendons. The way that we always want to be pulling is pulling down into that scapular contraction position. So throughout all the pulling motions, no matter what, you want to be pulling in to that down part where your hand is right around where your chest is. Even if you're doing a wide pull, you want to activate those same muscles as you would in the down part of a pushing exercise. All right? And lastly, we have core. And I think I put a star next to core because even though it's last, it is essential. It's so important throughout every single one of these exercises. If your core is not properly working, you are going to be swinging your body in different ways, which is going to cause damage, and you're going to get less out of the actual muscle that you're trying to use. You see, the core stabilizes our body. And this is what many people get wrong about when they do their core exercises. So many people in the gym that are doing sit-ups are not training their core properly. You see, the core's main job is stability, not mobility. The core is supposed to stay still while the rest of your body is supposed to move. What does that mean? Well, imagine somebody running. A perfect sprinter that's running is not going to have his whole body flopping around in an uncoordinated manner. He is going to have his core and the trunk of his body from the top of his core right up here all the way down to his hips and glute muscles and lower back are all going to be very sturdy while his arms and legs are moving in a coordinated fashion. If you can brace your core properly and learn how to do that through the core exercises that I'm going to teach you, all of your strength is going to go up a lot. This has been a brief introduction to the exercises and movements I'm going to teach you. I look forward to telling you a lot more, and I hope you found value in this video.